Lesson 9-2 Parabolas. So to start with, we're just going to talk about the different parts of a parabola and what all of these formulas represent. Now remember, you can also reference these formulas on that gold sheet that you were given in class, and you will be able to use that for the test, so you will want to familiarize yourself with what's on there. Okay. Now first of all, a parabola is a curve consisting of all points in the coordinate plane that are the same distance from a given point, called the focus, and a given line called the directrix. So if we need to see a picture, it's going to look similar to our quadratic equations, but when we're talking about parabolas, we're also including the other parts. So that focus point, the directrix line here, and then also the axis of symmetry. So as we are looking at this, the standard form equation for a parabola are given by these following two equations. Okay. Now, when we are talking about standard form for conic sections, we are always referring to the form where we can find either the vertex of something or the center of something, or the form that we would graph it in. It's not standard form from our previous chapters where we were talking about the highest power to the lowest power. So keep that in mind as we move forward in this chapter. The standard form equation is always the equation that we're going to graph from. The general equation looks more like our normal standard form from our previous chapters, which we'll do an example of each later. Also, just so you guys know, I added the alternative standard form, which looks like this. So this is the form that you're going to see in ALEX if you look through the explanations, or if you go elsewhere online. Most of the time you're going to see the parabolas written in this form. Now we can solve this for y here to get this. And then keep in mind our a here is equal to this 1 over 4c. Now I don't like using this one as much because I think it's harder to use, mostly because we're used to seeing our equations in this format, but it honestly doesn't matter. So if this form makes more sense to you, you can use that form instead. In your ALEX topics, when you are asked to write the equations, this form will be accepted as long as it's correct. Okay. So I'm going to go down to the picture so we can start talking about the different parts. Okay. So we still have a vertex, and our vertex is always going to be H and K. And then from the vertex to the focus, we're going to call this a distance of C. And then from the vertex to the directrix line, that will be the same distance of C. So that means that our vertex is always directly in the middle between the focus and the directrix. Okay. Now our focus point is always going to be inside of this U shape, whether it is opening up like the one I have. Our U shapes now can also open down. They can open to the right, like this one, or to the left. Okay. But no matter what, our focus point will always be inside of our U shape. Okay. And then that means for our directrix line, that will always be on the outside of our U shape, and our U shape has to open away from it. So in my picture going down, the directrix would be above it. And then for the one on the right, or opening to the right, the directrix is to the left of it. And then for the one opening to the left, our directrix is going to be to the left of it. Okay. Now, as we describe the directrix, it is a line. So we have to write an equation for the line when we are talking about it. So anytime we are dealing with a line that is horizontal, it is always going to be in the form of y equals. And again, you can reference that in those formulas written above. Anytime we have a vertical line, that will always be in the form of x equals. Okay. Now, if we are trying to find the directrix from our equation, we will have to know our vertex point. So here, and then we'll have to find our C value, which we are going to be using this formula here. So if you need to, I would put a star by that one because we're going to be referencing that a lot anytime we need to find the focus or the directrix. So if I have that value of C, that means that I would be adding it to my Y value of the vertex to find that focus point here. And then anytime we are trying to find the directrix, we would be subtracting the C from that Y value. Now, if our U shape is opening horizontally, so if it's opening to the right, this is still a distance of C here. So instead of adding it to the Y value, because I'm going to the right, we would add it to the X value. And then if we were trying to figure out where this is at, we would subtract that C value from the X. Okay. Now, if it's opening this way to get the focus, then I would be subtracting that C value, and then I would add it to go this way. So make sure that you're paying attention to your answers to see if they actually make sense with what is going on in your picture. Now, also so you guys know, for the focus, since we're dealing with C, and then that formula where A is equal to 1 over 4C, that is determining the direction that it's opening, that A value. So if your A is positive, so here, when it's vertical, that means that your U shape is going to open up like this. And if it's horizontal and our A is positive, it's going to open to the right. If A is negative, then it's going to open down if it's vertical, and to the left if it's horizontal. Okay. And then the last part that we need to talk about is this axis of symmetry here. So the axis of symmetry is the line that cuts our graph into two equal parts. So if we folded it on this line, these sides of our U would line up perfectly. And again, because it is vertical, we would represent it with an x equals equation. And that axis of symmetry is always going to go through the vertex and that focus point. And I will sometimes abbreviate that as AOS for axis of symmetry. So again, if it's a vertical line, we describe it as x equals. And then if it becomes a horizontal line, like it would for the horizontal parabolas, then we would switch this into a y equals equation. And it's still going to go through the focus point and the vertex. And then this would also be y equals.